Welcome to the Rustic Garden Homestead. Today is July 27th. Just did a video on what you can plant for August. And you know, you can certainly plant it now in July. You can plant these in August. I'm in Maryland Zone 7, so you can adjust accordingly. If it's hotter, you may want to wait a little bit. If it's going to get colder more quickly, you want to plant sooner. There are a lot of crops that you can plant now, late July, in August for the summer garden and also for your fall garden. So I just want to show you what I planted. Again, today is the 27th of July. This is okra that went in, let's just take a look, on 7/15. So the okra's already up. The soil's really dry. We're going to water. I'll be talking about that. But at this point, I usually put in 2 or 3 seeds. You don't want to be sitting around for one seed to germinate that's not going to germinate. These are going to get thinned down to one single plant as soon as they're a little bit taller. But the whole key is water, water, water. The soil can heat up to an easy 90, 100, 110 degrees. These have been watered pretty much every day for the first week, and then every other day. We're on the every other day right now. I'll show you how to water them. The water's really key because they don't have large root systems, and the sun can just dry out the roots, kill off your germinating seeds. But okra is great to plant now. It matures really quickly, and you have a lot of time for it. It's a frost-sensitive plant, so if you've got frost coming in September or so, maybe it's a little bit too late to plant. But if your frost isn't coming till late October, November, you have plenty of time to grow okra. This is one of my first cucumber plantings that went in, and it's pretty beat up. I just did a video on cucumber care and showed you how to try and save this plant. And it's still beat up. It's doing good 2 weeks later, and it is producing cucumbers, but there's not much left for this guy to really do. So on 7/18, I dropped in 3 more Market More cucumbers, and they've already germinated. They're to this size. I want to thin them down to at least 2, so I'm going to take one of them out. And again, the whole key is going to be watering. This is my zucchini. A good spacing in between. They were put in on 7/15, and they're already up to a nice size. I'm going to thin these down to 1 plant shortly. Water. You can see that the leaves are drooping. It's just too hot. So some of the things you can do for the summer crops to really make it successful for you for your next wave or your third wave is just to keep watering for a good 10 to 14 days. Get that root system in there. You can also use shade cloth, but for the summer crops, you don't really need that. These are my Armenian cucumbers growing a group here and on the other side of the cattle panel. I only want 1 or 2 plants, so I'm going to take a look at these. Weakest one looks like this guy. Going to remove it. General watering. Show you this in real time. Just really soak the area down. The root system is still shallow. It hasn't expanded really far, but go ahead, see how the water's running off. Let that, you know, soak into the ground. We'll water the ones over there. Let that soak in and come back to here. And you do want to spend a little bit of time just making sure the water soaks down deep into the root area, a good 2, 4, even 6 inches deep. If it runs off, it's just going to kind of run across there, maybe only, you know, moisten the top inch or 2, and the sun can really dry that out. So you want a nice deep watering, something like that, and that will make sure your germinated seeds continue to grow. For the zucchini, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. Soak in the area. The water's floating. I have a lot of clay in my soil, so sometimes the water sits. Let it drain away. Hit the other group. A lot of people, and I like to show in real time the watering, because a lot of people, for some reason, feel that they can overwater or drown their plants. You can't really do that with plants that are in the ground. You know, maybe rosemary, maybe lavender, but your warm crops really need the water, and the water's going to drain away. This is a good soaking for zucchini and cucumbers. I put in some dill on July 15th. Again, today's the 27th. 12 days later, lots of dill is coming up, and I will thin that down to, you know, 1 plant maybe every, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches. I really like dill, making a lot of pickles this year, planting a lot of cucumbers, so I wanted to get the dill in. The ground is starting to crack, so that's only, I think, about 48 hours from the last watering. So watering, again, and why do I keep saying watering? We tend to underwater our garden, and that's how you get a garden that just kind of survives and gets by. You water more, your garden thrives, you get more production out of it. That's my second wave of beets, and they're getting to a good size. They're all going to be harvested soon. I did plant some beets, so you can also plant end of July, beginning of August, your cool weather crops that are going to be for the fall garden. These are plants that can take a frost, but you can use the warmth of August to really get the seeds started, get them germinated, get them growing. So in here, this is really going to be my salad garden. They've germinated nicely. I've put in multiple seeds. I'm going to thin them down to 1 or 2 plants when they're a little bit larger. Now, the heat of the sun can cause sometimes your cool weather crops in August to bolt. They don't all do that. Like, you don't want to plant pak choi, bok choy now. Definitely don't want to plant arugula. Don't want to plant spinach. They're going to bolt. Lettuce can be slow growing. I want to have a lot of lettuce early on in the fall. I'll be doing another wave. But I've got Armenian, I've got red sails, and all kinds of different lettuces. When these are a little bit taller, I'm going to be dropping a shade cloth over here, keep the soil cooler, and that will just allow the romaine lettuce, the red sail lettuce, to just grow at a good pace. You want to cool the soil down for your cool weather crops, and that really allows you to start growing in August so you get them to the table earlier in the fall. I'll also be putting more out middle of August, so I get a later season crop. You don't want to plant everything at once, because then you got to eat, like, 40 heads of romaine lettuce. So do it in stages. But you can definitely get the lettuce out. 7/18, this all went in, and they look pretty good. And what do they need? A lot more water. Beets and turnips are wonderful cool crops to plant late July in August. Keep them going. This is my round, I think round number 3. The beets came up really quickly. Now the date on there says 7/14, but when I went back and checked, I had the day wrong. These really went in on July 16th. So in 11 days, the Detroit Goldens are up. Now when you plant a beet seed, it's actually a pod. So you want to get in there, and you only really want 1 or 2 plants per grouping. Just go ahead and thin them out. Thin them out. So beets you can leave 2 per hole. Here's another grouping of 4, so I'm going to take 2 out of there. You can leave 2 beets in the same hole, because the beets, as they mature, they're going to just push each other to the side. So you can get really 2 nice large beets by leaving 2 per planting hole. You can also pick one when it's smaller if maybe you feel like a single plant's going to get larger. Turnips you want to thin down to 1 plant. Now I put in a couple extra, I see whiteflies on here already. My goodness, look at that. On these little tiny turnips we have whiteflies already. So I'm going to come in there and have to spray those. Turnips get really large. 1 or 2 will work, but I like leaving 1, get a larger sized turnip. Let me just check under these beets. No, they went right for the turnips. Interesting. For watering, you want to water again really every day for a good 7-10 days and soak it in. You want a good soaking. So this water is going down a good 2 inches into, let's get the air out of there, into the soil. Don't worry if the plants get knocked down, they're going to spring back up. This is going to make all the difference for really healthy germinating seeds and solid plants for your, fall garden. Again, you can get the cool weather crops in now. Some of them are going to need protection maybe from the sun, but there's no reason to wait later into the fall to plant these, because you're going to miss out on getting a harvest sooner to the table. So I definitely like putting all these crops out really in later July, August for my first wave of cool weather crops. I also dropped in some peas. They're going to definitely need shade cloth, but I gave them some time to germinate. They only took about 8 or 9 days to get to that size. And again, for watering, just really soak them. Water makes all the difference. It cools the soil down, gives the plant, of course, what they need water-wise, but it also allows them to pull in all the fertilizers into their system. Without water, they can't access the nutrients that sit in the soil. My lettuce is well spaced out, good 4 to 6 inches. I'm going to grow full-size heads. So again, this will all get thinned down to just 1 plant, maybe 2. But for the lettuce bed, it's really important to keep the soil cool. So I'm soaking everything down. And my other plants, other germinating warm crops, and cool crops, maybe I just kind of water in where the seeds are. For this one, I really want to just cool down the entire bed. Plenty of water for the lettuce, but also you want to keep it cooler. Lettuce tends to bolt in warmer weather, so by keeping it cooler with the water, that helps. And then as it gets larger, when it's more prone to want to flower or bolt and produce seed, we want to use the shade cloth. But again, we're not just wetting the top inch down. We want this to soak down there, keep everything cool, and the lettuce should really thrive that way. And this is, again, a great way. Plant late June, plant late July, plant in August, and you will have romaine lettuce, loose leaf heading lettuces earlier in the fall for your first harvest to come to the table. Just soak everything down nicely. Here's some more crops. These are carrots back there, and the carrots have all sprung up really nicely. They're going to get thinned down to 1 carrot per space. I have kale, collards, and cabbage over here. And look, I've never seen whiteflies come so soon. That is just, or come when the plants are small. Look at that. That is insane. Now, because these are small and I've got time, I'm actually going to hit these with a chemical spray. I'm going to use 7. You could try the organic stuff, but this is a crazy infestation. That is just insane. And I'm comfortable with that come, really 60, 90 days later when these are mature. There's not going to be any residue left behind. But I want to kill these off because look at this. I mean, that is just nuts. I want to kill them off because if not, they're going to just keep going and growing, and they're just going to stay with these plants as they mature. So what I did is I put in some kale in here. First thing I want to do is I don't need all that kale. I just need 1 plant per hole. So I'm going to, and I had kale seed, it was old. So I put more seeds down just in case they weren't viable. I'm going to go ahead and take these down to 1 plant. It'll be a lot easier to treat them. And with that being said, maybe I'll try some soapy water first and some oil spray just to go. Generally what I like to do is try organic first, but these are just kind of freaked me out. So some soap and oil spray, get them under control, but there's no need to leave 3, 4, 5 plants in here. Thin them down to 1. So this is my transplant area. So as these get taller over the next 4 or 6 weeks, I'll be putting them into different parts of my bed. Space them out so I can just put a shovel in, dig out the root system, and then it'll be good to go. But rather than, popping these all throughout my garden, I can just come right in here and water. The carrots in here are going to stay. And then I did the same thing with cabbage. The cabbages are going in here, not all of them germinated. So I put in 1, 2, 3 plantings, 4, 5, 6. So only 3 groups came up. But I will thin them down to 1. Point being is I can grow some of the cool weather crops that are going to go into my garden where I already may have cucumbers growing or zucchini growing. I can just use a little bed like this as a transplant bed, get them to size, and then transplant them from here to other parts of my garden. Let me just show you the extent of the watering. Carrots are doing well. They could probably benefit from some shade cloth. And I like to show people that white flies are everywhere. I can't believe there are so many here. I hate white flies. That's probably the pest that I hate the most. But really soak the carrots down, get the water in there, come to the kales, and you can see how much water they're getting. And then I'm coming back here and I'm going to take back what I said. I'm going to start with the soap and oil spray, thin these plants down to 1 plant, and if they're still hanging around, I'm going to hit them with a stronger chemical. I just want them gone. You want to water like this really every 7 to 10 days. I'm going to keep stressing it for this year and probably next year. Watering makes all the difference. But now towards the end of July, I've got carrots in, I've got my transplant kale, collards, and cabbage. I've got beets in, turnips in. I've got my third round of cucumbers, zucchini, and my first round of okra in. I've extended the season by putting in future rounds of the warm weather crops. I've added in okra, and I've started my fall garden, all by just planting later July, early August. This works in most gardens. Just adjust. I'm in Maryland Zone 7. If you still have a lot of heat, you want to wait a while before you do this. And if you're in an area that gets colder, you want to get started right away. Don't wait till too late into August. That will make all the difference. The cool weather crops, beets, carrots, some brassicas will go in again in my garden April 15th. I'll be putting in radishes, pak choy, and stuff later in August. Please follow me and I'll show you how to grow an entire fall garden this year. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And again, please subscribe. I'll teach you how to grow food, have some fun, and save some money. Thanks for watching.